Hey guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another video. I used to do a ton of Epiphone reviews, but now that I think about it, it's been a while. The last one I did was the Slash Firebird back in early December, and before that was the Slash Anaconda Burst in freaking August. It's not that I've moved on from Epiphone, they've just been relatively quiet when it comes to new model releases. Well, look at this freaking thing though. Based loosely off of the Epiphone Del Rey, this is the DC Pro. So is this just a Les Paul with another horn? Well, kinda, but also kinda not really. Let's take a closer look. And before we go further, I want to give a shout out to Roddy Main and the rest of the amazing patrons. If you like what I do with the honest reviews, you can support the channel by checking out the Patreon page, checking out the sponsor, or just by liking the video. That actually really helps. And speaking of today's sponsor, this video is helped made possible by music2me.com. They're an awesome online music school for guitar and piano. They're part of the Toman family of brands. That means the lesson plans are made by Germans, so you know it's efficient and well crafted. It's fantastic whether you've just started playing and want a structured learning environment on your own schedule, or whether you've been playing for a while and just want a refresher on the basics. That's what I've been using it for since I'm self-taught, and there are a lot of gaps in my knowledge. I'll have more information later in the video, but if you've heard enough already and want to try it, check out the link below. If you like it, great. If you hate it, they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. And with that, let's get into the DC Pro. So at first glance, you might think that the DC Pro is just a Les Paul with another horn, and you'd be kinda right. It has a mahogany body with a carved maple top and AAA flame maple veneer, and a set mahogany neck, the same specs you'd expect to find on an Epiphone LP. Unlike your typical Les Paul though, it has a Pal Faro fingerboard with 24 medium jumbo frets. Pal Faro to me feels very much like Rosewood, though obviously much lighter in color. The inlays are kinda cool. They're very similar to the ones found in Les Paul Prophecies. They're pearloid blocks with abalone triangles for that extra bling factor. Speaking of bling, there's also this headstock. A lot of people consider Epiphone the poor man's Gibson, but even though Gibson owns Epi now, it's actually the older company. The long headstock shape is a callback to Epiphone's traditional past, then the 1940s viney floral inlay is just icing on the cake. Going along with the vintage theme, there are nice metal position indicators for all the speed knobs, and we'll talk about those more later in the video because the wiring is really cool. So the DC Pro comes in a few different finishes. We've got Midnight Ebony, Wild Ivy, Mojave Fade, Faded Cherry, and this one that I have here is in Black Cherry. My personal favorite is Wild Ivy. It looks very similar to the Slash Anaconda Burst Les Paul that I was a fan of, and apparently it's everyone else's favorite as well because it is consistently out of stock. I held off making a video about this guitar because I wanted Epiphone to send me the one in green, but I guess even they have limited stock. That being said, while sometimes some of the brighter Epiphone finishes can look kinda cheesy, this looks much better in person than I thought it would. Overall, because of the carved top and full thickness mahogany body, it has the same chunk as your standard Les Paul, but with an extra horn and a small tummy cut. The neck is listed as having a custom C profile. It's not quite as massive as the one on like the inspired by 1955 Les Paul Custom, but it's still relatively big. It's a strange one that's larger and rounder near the neck heel, and then thinner and flatter near the lower frets. It's basically like somewhere between traditional and vintage depending on where you are on the fingerboard. The DC Pro has 24 medium jumbo frets, 2 more than you'd normally find on most Epiphone guitars. Because of the double cutaway shape, upper fret access is quite good. It's better than a Les Paul, not quite as good as an SG due to the thicker body, and actually, because of the Les Paul style horn, not quite as good as a Gibson DC either, which has the lower horn further out from the main body. For $599, the DC Pro is surprisingly feature-loaded. First and foremost, we have proper Grover tuners. Grover is always a solid choice, and then we've also got a Graphtec Newbone nut. Graphtec's Tusk is my preferred nut material, and the Newbone is slightly softer, and therefore allegedly slightly warmer and closer in tone to actual bone. I say allegedly because honestly that's just what it says on the website. I have no way of actually testing that. What I can say though is that just like my other experiences with Graphtec nuts, I had no issues with tuning stability whatsoever. For other hardware, we've got a standard Epiphone Lock-Tune Tune-O-Matic and Stop Bar Tailpiece combo. Epiphone has come a long way with hardware since I first started playing them. Changing out the Tune-O-Matic in my G400 Custom for Godot was basically a necessary upgrade. The stock bridge was tiny, the saddles were made of I don't even know what metal, but palm mutes were weak and flubby. The hardware here is comparable to other guitars in the price range and gets the job done. Lastly, we've got Epiphone strap locks, which is a nice inclusion so you don't have to worry about buying aftermarket ones to protect your guitar. The DC Pro comes with 2 Epiphone branded humbuckers. We've got a Pro Bucker 3 in the bridge and a Pro Bucker 2 in the neck. The wiring though steals the show here. Both pickups can be individually split using the 2 volume push pull pots, and then there's a third push-pull to reverse the phase. There's also a treble bleed circuit so you can lower the volume without affecting the tone. Without it, turning the volume knob down results in loss of top end, so that's an awesome little behind-the-scenes addition. It's a lot of tones, so here's what everything sounds like through the Marshall. So I'll be honest, Pro Buckers aren't my favorite, but in all fairness, they aren't really made specifically for heavier tones, and they are very usable. The wiring scheme is absolutely ridiculous though, in a good way. There are so many tones on tap, which makes the DC Pro incredibly versatile out of the box. And then, if you aren't satisfied with the Pro Buckers, you can swap them out with any other 4-conductor pickups, and the wiring is already set up for you. That gives this guitar a ton of value as an easy mod project platform. Now, because this guitar has a standard Gibson 24 3/4 inch scale length, but has 24 frets instead of 22, the neck pickup is closer to the bridge than normal. Usually you've got room for a third middle humbucker, but not here. So the neck pickup is kind of brighter than you'd normally get out of an Epiphone Pro Bucker. Just something to keep in mind if you're picking one up as is. So the reason that Epiphone is one of my favorite guitar companies is that they produce guitars that are affordable with high bang for buck factor, and they've continued that streak with the DC Pro. As I was reviewing this guitar, I kind of forgot it was only $599 US. I definitely at certain points was just assuming that this is an $800 guitar. The weight, the build quality, the partial abalone inlays, and the unique wiring scheme, it amounts to a guitar that's different to your standard Les Paul or SG while still maintaining that Gibson Epiphone-y feel. And it's incredibly versatile, like to the point of absurdity. A lot of the time Epiphone gets written off as just the poor man's Gibson, and to be fair, they do make a lot of affordable versions of much more expensive Gibson guitars, which I'd argue is also super cool, but this is something different. It's not the same as a Gibson double cut Les Paul. The Epiphone DC Pro is its own original beast. If this is an indication of where Epiphone is heading, designing traditionally influenced, modern featured original guitars at wallet-friendly price points, I'm all for it. This guitar is really cool, and I can't wait to see what they do next. Speaking of what comes next, I guess, here's a little more on today's sponsor that is allowing me to bring this free content straight to your eyeballs and or earholes. I mentioned them at the beginning of the video. MusicToMe.com is a highly rated online music school which has professionally curated videos for theory, techniques, and even song lessons. You can track your progress, and you can also chat with instructors in real time if you're having trouble. So not only is it a really cool service that over 10,000 students have already used to learn their instrument, but they also believe in fostering original content for the online guitar community, which is why they've sponsored this video. Supporting the sponsors is supporting the channel, so check the link to a 30-day money-back guarantee trial in the description. So if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit the like button. These are of course just my opinions, and I'd love to hear yours, so leave them in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You can also hit the bell for notifications, so YouTube will maybe let you know when I've uploaded a new video. If you want to support what I do and get exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon. Thanks to Epiphone for sending this guitar over, and to Luke for mixing everything. Social media and merch links are down below. As always, thanks so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I'll see you for the next video.